Mr. Cobus Breytenbach. How are you?
Doing well, thanks, Dominic. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm pretty happy to have you here. I tell you, you and I did our pre-interview just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Did you remember what I said there just when we first got on that call?
I do not actually.
Your name.
My name. That's right.
Cobus Breytenbach. I'm like, if I was a knight in full armor and I knew I was going up against a guy named Cobus Breytenbach, I might, there might be a little rust in my iron armor.
You remember my rebuttal to that?
No, what was it?
It was if this was South Africa, might as well be John, because that's how common my name is.
Oh, Cobus is just a common name.
Yeah, very common.
It's funny. I actually, there's quite a few South African, the people who've left South Africa and have now started business in other places. Quite a few South Africans listen to the show, and you guys are strong in construction. No surprise there. So here you are.
We are. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Cobus, who the heck are you? And how is it that you come to be speaking to all these forward-facing business owners all around the world?
Well, name's Cobus Breytenbach. We own 33 North homes and construction here at the Atlanta market. We do design build stuff for residential, interior remodeling, and we also do some cabinetry for production builders and those sort of things. And I actually got invited by, I believe it was one of your recruiters. I think they saw some of my marketing videos on LinkedIn and so forth.
My producer,
they reached out.
Jackson reached out to you.
Yeah, Jackson, that's right. I keep forgetting his name.
That's okay. Sorry, Jackson. I think it's okay.
But yeah, that's how we ended up over here. I wasn't pursuing to be on a podcast. It just happened to come along and gave a few of your podcasts a listen. I was like, okay, this is great. I like the content you're putting out, kind of what you're preaching out there. So I was like, yeah, very interested.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, this whole show is about the business of the construction business.
Yeah.
I'm not, nobody listens to my show to learn how to be more plumb, more square, and more level. That's, I don't know, somebody else's podcast, Oprah, I don't know, whatever. But this show is about the business of the construction business. And you and I didn't even know what this topic was going to be until we chatted for a bit. And I think I like where we landed, which is an observation you've made over your years in running a business and growing the company. Education is power.
Absolutely.
It sounds like wisdom there. That sounds like painful wisdom.
It is painful wisdom. It is painful wisdom. I was one of those guys that grew up. My father was an entrepreneur. He owned an accounting firm, grew up around business, knew a lot of business people in the town I grew up in, very, very successful people. So I feel like I had a pretty well-rounded understanding of business in general, and kind of got my butt kicked a couple of times, in the construction field, and got to a space where I was about $50,000 in debt. And I had to figure out a way. So I started pursuing, trying to figure out how to make this thing work.
How can I go back for a second? How did you, the son of an accountant, how did you end up in construction? And what was that conversation at the dinner table?
My parents were, their mindset was always, as long as you enjoy what you're doing, we're going to support you with it.
Okay.
And my dad actually, he didn't like accounting, and he drilled it into my head. He was like, he was very good at numbers, and he provided a great lifestyle for our family. But he told me later on in his life, it's like, if I had a choice, I'd probably do it over because I didn't love it. I kind of fell into it because I was just so good with numbers. So from an early age, my early teens, I was a little lost, didn't have any direction or anything. I remember my dad had to sit down with me. He was like, you're going to get some direction. You're going to figure out what you want to do. You don't have to know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But as long as you love what you do, I'll support you.
That's a pretty cool guy.
So, yeah. Some wise wisdom right there. You got to love what you do. If you don't love what you do, then
it doesn't matter.
It's a job.
Yeah. I think most people here love what they do. Although I've heard from some that they fell into it because I was working as a laborer, then I moved up and I was a foreman, then my girlfriend got pregnant, and now here I am. Well, I'm still doing this job, and I run a bit, and everybody's got their own path, but usually we love what we do. Like, we love that feeling of those cabinets look great, that HVAC system works, and helping that family. There's some personal satisfaction from the business.
No, absolutely. And then what I like about construction, especially when I got started in it, and I kind of fell into it too. I've always been handy. I always knew, even when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to do something with my hands. I didn't necessarily know what it was going to be. Yeah. But when I moved to America, literally, my brother picked me up at the airport here in Atlanta at Hartsfield Jackson. He put me in a panel van. We drove straight to a job site, and he was like, okay, you're installing cabinets from now on.
Were you smuggled into the country? That sounds like a pretty quick turnaround.
I was not smuggled in there. So it kind of chose me, I guess, but it just worked out that I enjoyed it. And what I like about it is it's tangible. You can see it.
Yeah.
So you go into somebody's house and a couple of weeks later, you can go, okay, I took this kitchen from this to that, where the computer work of things and spreadsheets. And even though we do a lot of that just because we're on the business side of things now,
yeah,
you don't necessarily see the movement over there. You're doing stuff, but it's not quite as visual as the actual construction aspect.
You're right. There is something about having a sore back at the end of the day and being exhausted, but you turn around one more time and you're like, we just stripped all the forms off that building, or we just, put on a second floor, or the roof finally went on. And there's a sense of satisfaction. I don't get that here. When I leave, my desk is either dirty or it's clean.
Yeah.
What did you do today? I don't know, actually. Yeah.
And I still now, oddly enough, as I say it, I spend more time on the back office stuff now than what I did in the beginning. But you can at least still see your project managers to upload stuff to your system. So it's like, oh wow, that was just done. So you still get it, but you don't have that one-on-one contact necessarily with the clients, because at a certain point we kind of do the handoff, from sales and design to the project managers, and then we kind of rely on them being the intermediary.
Well, that sounds like a dream to a lot of people, Cobus. Can you give us a picture of maybe just employee wise, like what does the company look like if I look top down?
So there's three of us. I'm of course president of the company. My wife is our director of design. She does all the design work with us. Nice. When I say design, like I actually do the floor plans on the non-stamp plans. Like we'll design the floor plans in-house, but if it's something where we need structural engineering and stuff, we have a great partner that we sub that out to.
Yeah.
Like basements, kitchens, those sort of things where we're not moving any load-bearing walls, all that. We'll just do all the floor plan designs inside in-house. Then we'll hand that plans off to my wife, Lisa, and she'll go to the client and either bring them into our showroom, or if we don't have what they're looking for, we'll go to our third-party trade partners that we use as well.
Interesting. So you have a showroom. So part of your process is bring that prospect to the showroom.
Correct.
And then the two of you, how many crew do you have then? Or what's the office? What's the production look like?
So then we've got one field project manager that pretty much runs everything. And he's capable of doing about, on a revenue standpoint, you can run about 600,000 or 700,000 at any given time. And we do larger projects. So it's not, some people might go 600,000. Wow, that's a lot of projects. But in our case, that might be 3 projects that's in different stages. So you'll just kind of bounce around between those projects and go wherever's needed.
Yeah. And then how much is everybody under that a sub, or do you have your own crews?
Everybody subs.
Interesting.
Subs. Yeah.
Did you start that way, or did you start obviously you started swinging the hammer.
Yeah.
Or the wrecking bar, as it were, depending on what stage of the job you're at. But
correct. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing, because I find a lot of guys in construction, they always tell me they have a hard time of getting off the tools. And I've always been, when you set up an LLC, when you start your business, you put your tool belt down, because you're not a construction worker anymore. You're a business owner. So there's a drastic difference between those two paths. You can't do the business stuff and grow a business and simultaneously be the one out in the field doing all the work. I understand there's times where you have to do it.
Right.
But my mindset is always, if you start a business, immediately remove yourself from the field and figure out a way to run it and not be in it.
So but again, that comes from pain, and I know this from my own experience, but that comes from painful experience, which takes us back to our topic. Knowledge or education is power. How did you get to that point in your business? Like, what did you have to go learn? Actually, let me back up. What happened to make you recognize you were missing something, and that something was education?
I would say being busy and realizing that I'm doing a lot of work and I'm running all over town, yet I'm still going in debt. I'm still like every month I'm like having cash freezes. Why is it like I'm doing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of work, but
did you see that?
Myself, I can't.
Yeah, I just took that inhale, that stress, like I'm in debt, that stress.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It finally got to a point where I was about 50,000 in the hole, still doing work. People were still calling. We already had built up a pretty good name at that point. People were calling us for work. It never felt like the more work we did, the further and further we fell behind. Our portfolio grew. We had beautiful pictures of the work and stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. So I knew there was a disconnect between completing the work and actually running the business side of things. And that's kind of when I started looking into, okay, how do I do this?
how difficult was that dinner table conversation? And I think of the kitchen table, the dinner table all the time, because going and talking to my wife and saying, so payroll's next week and we're in trouble. And that's for business owners, that happens from time to time, but it's not what my wife wants to hear, because suddenly everything is bad. How are those? Now, I'm not saying that happens with you and your wife. I would never imply that, but but you're laughing. But how were those conversations at your home?
It was tough. I mean, my wife knew where the position we were in at that point. I was going also through a contract dispute, but I actually ended up having to go to the state licensing board and kind of defend myself, because somebody was trying to say I didn't do something.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I was cleared of all non-doing. It was just a big thing. But if you want to have a great weight loss plan, go to the state licensing board and sit there with the state attorneys going, so-and-so suing you because of this and this, and you've got to make your case about why that's not the case.
While you're still trying to run the company.
Yeah, well, you're still trying to survive and everything.
And take your kids to soccer and dance and music and act like it's all normal.
Exactly. Yeah. So it kind of fell into that situation, which was horrible. I said, great diet plan. You want to lose weight? Get sued. That'll do the trick. At least for me. Other guys, I guess, might gain some weight, but for me, it was like 20 pounds overnight. I was like, whoa.
Why are all these shirts staying in the dryer too long? They're all tight on me now.
Yeah. So and that was just an unfortunate situation, though. It wasn't, there was no validity to it. It was just somebody that was pretty much, when the project was completed, they literally told me the day before, it looks great. Come get the check tomorrow. And tomorrow rolled around, didn't hear from them, called them the following day, and they were like, yep, we're not going to pay you. Instead, you're going to pay us back $30,000, or else we're going to take your license. And they kind of use that as kind of like trying to do a little bit of an extortion thing there. And I was like, hey, I'll fight this.
Let's, and obviously confidentiality is at your discretion, right? As far as you want to go. But if you don't mind, let's take a little side tour there, because there's some people listening right now who just turned up the volume a little bit. They want to hear more. What did you learn? Looking back on that situation now, what did you learn to keep you away from those situations in the future?
I vet my clients very, very well on the front end. And by that, it's hard to explain it, but I don't want to, because I know some people do this as part of their investment strategy, but as a general rule, I try and stay away from real estate investors.
Okay.
It's just, every time I've done it, there's always been issues, and payments always issues. There's always, do this, we'll get you hooked up on the back end with some extra money, and it just never happens. But let you mess something up, and they're very quick to just like, oh, well, you did that, so I'm just going to withhold this. But then you go, well, I did that for you because you said you're going to pay me, so why don't we just offset? It's like, no, I didn't tell you to do this. It was just a lot of no pre-planning, no clear scope of work, getting started in that remodeling space. Not a design build firm yet at that point. It was kind of like, we'll supply the material, you do the labor. It was just a disaster. So that's another thing. If somebody says labor only, I'm out. We don't do labor only.
So you have rules now. You have flags. And by flags, if I say something during the conversation like, hey, I'm a real estate investor and I think I could keep you busy all year, right away, not your type of business.
If I had a penny for every time somebody said, I've got a lot of work, if you hook me up with this one, I'm going to take care of you with the next 30, I'd have like, $1,000. It never happens. It never happens. Guys love doing that. I see it all the time where these big companies come in and go, oh, we're going to give you, like, actually, I'm currently, was speaking to a company that was saying they can do about 400 or 500 kitchens a year. And the numbers they wanted was just the logistics I would have had to put in place within the company in order to manage it. I probably would have made about 30 grand off of the 400 kitchens at the numbers they wanted it at. It was like, oh, it's volume, it's consistency. I don't care about consistency. I don't care about volume. It's got to be the right project where we know we can put our best foot forward and get our best trade partners on. When I have to start going, oh, I've got to meet your budgets, I've got to go find a cheap guy to do this and a cheap guy to do that, the project's starting off on the wrong foot already. So it's not going to be a pleasant experience for anybody involved.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, thanks for that little side angle.
Sure.
But now this goes to the topic of the day anyways, which is knowledge is power, education is power. You've learned from those past mistakes.
Oh yeah.
Let's go back to your kitchen table. for a second.
Sure.
When you were being brought in front of the board, somebody was accusing you of wrongdoing, which obviously you won and you hadn't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
But you knew you had to dip your toe in the water of education. You knew that knowledge was going to get you through this to the next level. What was the first step you took?
Honestly, YouTube.
Oh,
I was like, how to run a construction. And there's so much information on them. There's so many guys that are really just full of it. There's maybe 5 to 10 guys that are really legitimate. And then there's a lot of guys that, they built a company to $1 million a year or something, which is respectable. A lot of companies never get to $1 million. But I also came to a realization that revenue doesn't impress me anymore.
I love it. Keep going. Tell me why.
Yeah, revenue doesn't impress me at all. I mean, I've been in some coaching programs where guys are doing $5-10 million a year, but they barely paying themselves $100,000.
They're not profitable. Isn't that crazy? Unfortunately, I hear that as well.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, I've seen guys that do landscaping, they do $1 million a year and they pay themselves $450,000 a year personal take home.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody comes in and says, we do so much revenue, I'm like, well, that's great. Well, what's your margins?
Well, I call that the big lie. And you know where I get that lie? And now I want to take you not to a kitchen table, but to a Christmas party that my wife drags me to with her friends. Okay. And I'm just in the kitchen. I'm at the fridge. I'm trying to get a drink. And this guy pins me in the corner. He's like, how big are you? What's your revenue? And then he just wants to talk about revenue. And all he wants to say is that the big company he works for, they're going to do 20 billion this year and blah, blah, blah. He has no sense of what it means to be a business owner. And he just focuses on revenue. And that's when I have a code. My wife and I, when I start pulling on my right ear, she's supposed to come and save me. But usually she's in another room with the wives and I'm stuck with the husbands. And I'll be honest, I don't like these guys. Like I'm just there, but it's all about revenue. They're corporate guys, but they don't get that it's about profitability. It's about scale, like about running the business so you still have a life, not revenue. Yeah. I call it the big lie. Yeah, it's the big lie.
Absolutely. And talk about having a life. I'm home most days by 4 p.m.
Ooh, you're better than me.
Yeah, I'm home most days by 4 p.m. Usually drop my kids off on the school bus in the mornings.
Nice.
I don't work weekends at all.
You're doing it right. And so that's what education started you on. So you started on YouTube. Total cost to you? Zero,
yeah.
Right. And then did you start taking courses? Did you start reading books? Like I want to know what your path was, because other people listening to this show are on that path, whether they know it or not. Sure. Listening to a podcast about the business of the construction business is part of that knowledge path. So what was your progression?
So I found this one particular coach online on YouTube. I won't, obviously, reasons not going to mention his name on this. But what he spoke about was like really hitting to my core at that point. Because all the struggles I was going through, I was like, whoa, okay. This guy is saying stuff that I've never heard anybody else say. So let me dig into that. And he had a small coaching program at that point. I joined it and like immediately things started like clicking.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, well, I don't want to say it was entry level stuff, but it was like where I'm sitting right now. I feel like a lot of that stuff should just be general knowledge. Yeah. But it isn't. And even with my background of being around very successful people, growing up with
dad's an accountant.
Dad's an accountant. All these clients are super successful business owners. They own multiple companies. They're balling, living the best lives ever. And even with my background, it's like some of these things that I now consider basic, which really isn't, I just started implementing that. So like one thing at a time. Okay, well, you do this. Like one of the big things was like knowing your numbers and what do you do? Don't
tell everybody that.
Yeah.
What do you mean knowing your numbers?
Like truly know your numbers. And then also niching down.
Oh,
I think from a construction standpoint, the biggest mistake that contractors make is they're doing everything.
So can you tell me what niching down means? Because I think we talk about that on the show in a different set of words. So if Cobus, tell me what niching down is, please.
All right. So niching down, what I consider niching down is, let's use it in my business, for example, design, build, remodel. Up until a month ago, we did not sell bathrooms as a standalone service. If somebody called us for a bathroom renovation, we would say, no, we don't do bathroom renovations. Even though we have 4 or 5 bathrooms going on at any given time,
you don't just do
it's part of a much larger renovation.
I got you.
So for me, niching down is picking those things where you know you can make money and where you have the right trade partners in place, and then using those guys over and over and over. But if somebody called me, for example, for a deck, I've got a great framer. He builds decks for other companies.
Yeah.
But I don't do decks.
Right.
I can do it. I understand it. I can probably do a better takeoff and a quantity of, the hangers and everything than most people in the market.
Right.
But I don't specialize in it.
So understanding your ideal client is how I talk about it here. And really, really, really focusing on who's my ideal client and how does that line up with the crew that I've got, the equipment that I've got, the way we do business, and it's profitable for us. It takes a while. Like you have to sort of smash your thumb a couple times before you realize this isn't the right client for me.
Yeah. And it's not even so much the right client. I mean, if once you've done a certain amount of jobs, you can go back and job cost. There's another one.
Are you talking about knowing your numbers, Cobus? What are we on here?
Yeah. So I know you've had Eric on the program before, so if you don't mind.
Eric Fortenberry.
Yeah, Eric Fortenberry.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's a great friend of the show. Yeah.
Yeah, like I've looked at a bunch of different contractor programs and stuff, and what he's developing right now, it just makes all of this so easy. It's like I keep telling people, it's like if you're on that co-construct, build a train, all that other stuff where you got to do so many clicks, at least look at Eric's stuff. Go look at Job Trade and see, because it's so simple. At least from my standpoint, I think if you've never used any systems like that before, try to implement something like that. It might still be confusing.
Yeah, well, but isn't that part of education and knowledge? Like get started. One of the things that I see, and I wonder if you encountered this as well, is that we can get analysis paralysis because there are choices out there. Yep. Well, I could use this app or this software or this system. I could just use an Excel spreadsheet. But if I don't choose one, I'm never going to move ahead. Even if I make a mistake, make the mistake with pride. Go do it and go, oh yeah, that didn't work. We have to change gears. But if you never try, it sounds cliche, but you'll just never grow.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's part of getting out of the field too, putting the tool belt down. Because you can't implement those systems when you're working 8-10 hour days in the field.
When you're hanging fascia board. Yeah,
you
just can't do it.
I mean, yeah, you can say, I wake up at 4 a.m., spend 2 hours in the office, then put my kids on the bus, then go to work for 10 hours, come home, do dinner time with the family, and then do estimates until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, and then repeat it. But
you're hurting my heart.
That's misery. That's absolute misery. Go get a job. You're going to be happier.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get ahead. Well, I'm not saying you're not going to get ahead, but it's a very hard cycle to break. And unless you get the proper education and start knowing what to do, you're probably going to be stuck in that cycle.
Well, and I feel bad because that exists. And a lot of people listening are in that cycle now. Just as I said, hanging fascia board, I guarantee you there's somebody with his headphones in, hanging fascia board, listening to this going, Dom, are you watching us right now? Yeah. But it's education that gets us through this. Knowledge is power. And then even further to that, taking action on the knowledge is another thing.
No, absolutely. And I will say, I haven't been necessarily the best action taker with everything, but I've been good at sitting down and seeing what I'm being coached on and looking at my business and go, if I take this piece and fix that, that's going to resolve this issue. But then, of course, bottlenecks happen. So you resolve one issue and the next one starts up, but then at least you have that foundation in place. So you've got that first thing that's working, and then you tackle the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I think a lot of guys do mistakes that make this mistake too when they do get involved with coaching. They look at everything, and it's so overwhelming because it's systems and it's sales and it's contracts and it's this and it's that, it's numbers, it's break-even points and margins, and there's so much stuff going on. You have to look at your business and say, where am I struggling the worst right now? Fix that one thing and then jump to the next.
I have a less than polite way of explaining that.
Yeah.
In the beginning, when you're trying to improve your business or change your business, it's the same as taking a fat kid to the gym. It doesn't matter what he or she does. Get on the bike, swim, run, row, just change your diet. In the beginning, it actually does not matter. Just do something.
Correct.
And that something, like you said, leads to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And eventually that becomes a lifestyle. When we talk about numbers, and by the way, I'm not a numbers guy. Are you naturally a numbers guy?
Not really.
Yeah, I'm not. No, I'm not. But what I am is a patterns in the numbers guy. I like the patterns in them. So my finance people have to give me graphs and charts with colors. I'm not even shy about it. But if you just give me a spreadsheet, I don't know what I'm looking at. But when I see graphs and charts, I'm like, okay, that line is going the wrong direction for me to be happy. We got to fix it. Yeah. Right. So it doesn't matter where you start, but just get started. Just get started. Absolutely. Do something, even if you do something small, get started.
Yeah. And I would say for the most part, when most guys get involved with coaching on the front end, to get the most of your time back is learning how to sell. And I don't say learning how to sell, oh, Mr. Homeowner calls and he wants me to come to his house on 10 o'clock on Saturday morning sell.
No.
It's like how to set up your entire funnel of when leads come to you, the process they go through. By the time they actually get on the phone with you, they're 90% there and you just got to take them over the finish line.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times that doesn't happen because there might be, the vision of what they want and the budget doesn't align. And sometimes people just opt to hold off until they can do everything. And that's fine. But it took me a 20 or 30-minute phone call to figure that out and not a Saturday morning.
Leaving your kids, getting out of bed early.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's, I think, and let me do this as a training moment for everybody out there. When we're in the business versus working on the business, I'll use that statement, we forget the perspective of stepping back and recognizing that business is just a flow chart. We start with marketing, then it moves to sales, estimating, bidding, whatever you call it, right? And then when we win that job, it moves into the office. It has to move into production, then we've got the accounting and finance. But if you don't see that whole system, then you've overcomplicated things. And so what you're talking about here is stopping the indigestion in your business. Sell it right.
Yeah.
If you don't sell it right, if the wrong expectations are at the front, it's just going to be, painful gas and bloating the whole way through.
Yeah.
Indigestion, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's also like once you learn the selling aspect of it, you also figure out who the clients are that you want to work with. Like I'm very specific about who my ideal client is. Like I'm going to share. I'll share it with you.
Yeah, please do.
Because I feel like most people, when I say this, people go, "Whoa, that's your client." I'm like, "Yeah, that's my client. That's my ideal client." We do work for other clients, but this is my ideal client.
Your perfect client. Yeah.
So my ideal client is in their middle to late 30s. They're married. They've got 2 kids. They're both college educated, and one of them either has a master's degree or is interested in pursuing a master's degree.
Wow.
Those people, they are my most profitable clients. They are the easiest clients to work with. They are educated. By the time they get on the phone with you, they are ready to go. They don't have unrealistic expectations. They know, say, a nice kitchen renovation. By the time we speak to them, they know they're looking at $100,000. So when we say $100,000, they don't go, "Oh gosh, I thought we could do it for 10." Because they educate themselves in the front end just because the way their brains are wired.
Yeah. And how busy are they in their normal lives?
Extremely busy.
Do they own their own ladder or hammer?
No.
Yeah. See, they don't even have the tools to do it themselves potentially if they want it.
Yeah.
And how do they find you in general? How do they find you? Like, how does that 30, by the way, is younger than I would have anticipated. But you're talking definitely about a white collar crowd with masters or,
Yeah, they're young professionals,
right?
In their mid to late 30s, and of course older. I mean, gosh, I'm going to be 40 this year. When this ideal client was my ideal client, that was 4 years ago. So I was 36. I was kind of in range, but it still really is. Because what I find is that age group, specifically in Atlanta, I'm pretty sure it's like this in a lot of metropolitan areas, but a lot of them work in town.
Yeah.
They're either lawyers or whatever professional. They usually work for big corporations that have headquarters within the city limits.
Yeah.
So they don't want to commute 45 minutes out to the suburbs. You do that later on in life when your kids are a little bit older and you're tired of the city life. But when you initially get married and you're young professionals, you want to be 15, 20 minutes from your office.
Yeah.
So they tend to buy older homes for a lot of money that need a lot of work in really historical areas of the city. But it's proximity-wise, they can walk to a park, they can walk to restaurants, those sort of things.
Yeah.
So most of these houses need work, but then they also have the right jobs in their careers to actually be able to afford to do things to their houses.
Love it. Yeah. I'm happy for you. And obviously you're very confident in that definition.
Yeah.
But that's good. So now when you see Mike and Mandy and they're 38 years old, and he or she, either of them, is a senior executive manager at a retail chain, you're like, yep, this is going to be my client. We're going to be able to do great work for that family.
Well, that's the initial stepping stone. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You still have to go through all the personality types and figure out. But we can go so deep with this. But
again, you're here today. How long have you been running the company?
This particular company, so we rebranded after the whole thing happened that we spoke about earlier, and that was on behalf of the licensing board's attorney told me to do this.
Really?
He was like, these people aren't going away. Just rebrand and go about your business. You good. But if you just keep going with this, they're just going to keep going because it was just
well, it's probably less money for them
situation.
to come after you with lawyers that they have on staff than, yeah.
Anyways,
Let's not.
So they actually, the lawyer told me when everything was finalized, he was like, just change your name. We'll issue a new license number and all that good stuff.
Good.
And I'm open about this. Like, I'm not trying to hide this from clients or anything. Like, people can, if you go really do a deep enough Google search, all this stuff's going to come up in any case. So it's not something that I hide away from. Because there was no wrongdoing on my end.
Right. But you rebranded.
I kind of forgot. So rebrand. It's been about 3 years now.
Okay, but before the rebrand, what I'm trying to say, what the question I'm trying to answer is, how long have you been in business for you to get to the point where you're talking about behavioral style assessments as part of the selling process? That's very advanced business stuff. A lot of people listening here, they're at the education level of business of listening to this show.
Yeah.
They haven't. So how long have you been running the business to get to this point now, or the construction industry?
I've been with this company now. We'll just start because I'll kind of use this company as a starting point, because that's when I got involved with actual coaching and learning how to run the business side of things.
Yeah.
Before that, I still thought I was running the business side of things. I was still off the tools.
Yeah.
But it was all over the place. Dumpster fire. It was just all over the place. I was doing everything from replacing a handrail to building a deck, to doing a roof, to doing siding, just all across the board. If somebody called me, it was like, yes, I can do that.
Yes, I can. Right. How many years? How many years have you been at it?
So construction, 20 years. I've been in construction for 20 years. But I would say the last 3 years is really where I kind of made that shift of barely getting by and really starting to learn the business aspect of it.
So you're only 3 years into this real investment in yourself, in education. And now and it's funny, money comes slowly and then it just comes suddenly. The overnight sensations are not overnight sensations.
Oh gosh, no.
Right?
Not at all. And it's so, the amount of people that I've seen online too, in construction specifically, like guys that you think that do a lot of Facebook Lives and they're running their own construction companies, and they, by all appearances, they are just absolutely crushing it.
Yeah.
And a year later, they're gone. They just disappear. It's like, I haven't seen a video from that guy in a while. And you go figure out what they did, because you kind of know them. You might have had a few phone conversations here and there, and you realize they're working for a competitor as a project manager. That sort of thing. It just happens so often because people think that if you're busy, when you're doing millions of dollars of revenue a year, you must be making money, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've got $200,000-$300,000 in and out of the business account every month. It's like, oh, well, we're killing it. But, you might only have $1,500 left. At the end of the day.
Yeah. It's why the business of business is so important. Like understanding, and I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to too many episodes of the show, but one of the challenges that I put forth to the audience here is to ask themselves the question. And I know there's a bunch of people laughing already because they know the question I'm going to ask.
Yeah. Am
I a business person who happens to run a construction company, or am I a contractor with a crew? And am I a business person who just happens to run a construction business, or am I a contractor with a crew?
So I like to think of myself as a company that does sales and marketing. We just happen to do construction.
Okay, good.
Yeah. That's the way I look at it, because everything stems from sales and marketing. You don't have the leads, you don't have the sales, everything else is non-existent. So we really focus on that. We're ramping it up even more. Like you mentioned earlier, you've seen some of our additional videos and stuff. We're really ramping it up. I've actually got a call with my marketing department. When I say my marketing department, it's a third party that we use, but I refer to them as they are our marketing department. They handle everything marketing related for us.
Sure.
And we actually have a call on, I think it's on Tuesday, we've got a call scheduled where we're going to map out the next 9 months of our SEO approach. And then they're going to do, the wording and the blogging and all that, but then I'm going to simultaneously create videos to go along with all that content stuff. So we're going to map that out because we are, I don't want to say recession. I really hate that word because so many people are focusing on, the economy, like I haven't once complained about the gas price. Does it suck? Yes, it sucks.
Yeah,
but as a business owner, you can't go, the gas price, the material prices. Everything's high. Don't say, this is making it so hard. Just pass that cost onto the client to go sell the job for the margin you need to sell it at and keep going.
Yep.
The pricing honestly is irrelevant. Yeah, some people are maybe not going to go with you,
but others will.
Others will. The right people will go with you.
Well, and I think the confidence in your voice comes from the fact that you've now gotten to the point where you're working on your marketing. When people, correct me please, but when people rely on word of mouth and ads and hoping people will call them, you're not in a control position. You don't know when the phone's going to ring. So when it finally rings, you're like, I got to go get that deal. But when you're an active marketer, when you've stepped back from the business and you recognize that you're running a company and there's levers you could pull to get more of better prospects calling you, there's some confidence to that. And you know what, people, if house prices suddenly plummet or if house prices suddenly go through the roof, both of those are good things because everything that goes down, something else has to go up.
Yep.
Right. And again, if everything's going up, something has to go down. So if people are stuck in their homes because they can't afford financing, they're going to do more renovations. Yep. If money becomes cheap, they're going to buy new homes. Well, we're in a great place for either of those things.
Yeah, so I'm really not too concerned about it. That's kind of what we're doubling down on all our marketing efforts going into the next 2-3 years. And we would have done it in any case, but now we've kind of sped up the process with a little bit. It's like, well, let's really hammer this. Because when other guys are scaling back because they're worried about, the gas prices, I can't do $1,000 mailer on postcards because, gas prices. So let's scale this back. Well, let's cancel that altogether because, we're in a recession. If you watch the news, everything's falling apart.
Yeah, don't watch the news.
You scale it back, then you're just scaling your business back. So this is the point where you have to push right now.
Have to invest.
And it doesn't have to be monetary. It doesn't have to be Facebook ads or video or anything, but you can just do a simple video. The craziest thing about videos on Facebook Lives to me
is the worse they are, the better they are.
That absolutely. But it's also sometimes you look at it and the analytics will tell you, you've reached 600 or 700 people. You've got no idea who they are or anything like that. They didn't comment, they didn't share, they didn't like, nothing like that. And then you'll go to we big UJ fans, so we'll go to a lot of Georgia games. And you go to a game and you see somebody at tailgate is like, dude, I love your videos. We watch them all the time. I'm like, comment, share, do something.
Why did I have to see you at a tailgate party? By the way, hand me a beer. But you know what? That's interesting is that's actually a conversion rate strategy, not a lead generation strategy.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So when we get the right prospect and they're comparing your contracting company with mine, they're going to go check us both out online, especially if they're that well-heeled under 40 years old person. They're going to go check us out online. If you've got 70 videos, they're not going to watch all 70, but you're going to win just by beating me to death. Like that guy's got 70 videos. I watch a few. You go to my website, it's misspelled, it's old. They're like, I don't know. It kind of seems like Dom's company's shutting down. Cobus is, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right. It just seems like that.
It's eyeballs. You got to get eyeballs on your business. It doesn't have to be like, I think a lot of times people consider marketing as, and it's not. I mean, marketing is not just, I put $1 out, I get a lead in, or I put $100 out, I get a lead in. Marketing is just getting eyeballs on you.
Yeah.
It's just consistently staying in front of people, because the people watching the video, they might never actually buy anything from you or reach out to you to do any work for them, but they know somebody that goes, we want to do our kitchen. It's like, oh my gosh, you got to watch Cobus. Check you got to see his Facebook page. You just did this one. And they don't comment, they don't share. You don't even know that it's happening, but it's in the background. People are inadvertently showing your content to other people that just briefly mention that, we want to do a bathroom. We want to finish our basement. We want to do the kitchen, something like that. And that's kind of how it steamrolls.
All these, I mean, really, when we talk about education as power, what I've heard you say is you invest in yourself and you invest in the right things. So I want to go back to your kitchen table again. Yep. Life is dark. You guys have been accused of something that you didn't do, but you now say to your wife, hey, I want to hire a coach. And she says, are you kidding me? We don't have $1. We bought the small milk, not the big one. we're on mac and cheese and you want to take a course? Like, I'm putting words in your mouth, but what was that conversation like? Oh, you're laughing.
I don't recommend this. Well, actually, I do certain extent. No, this is a touchy one on how to approach this one because.
Well, don't get yourself in trouble in case she listens.
No, she will listen. She'll listen, but
hi.
She knows now. But we didn't have that conversation. She knew we were in a bad spot. I was just like, I'm going to make this succeed. Pull out a credit card. Hired a coach. 3-4 months later, the thing started changing around a little bit. A year after, was it a year? It was a year afterward. Yeah, it's because it's coming up on 2 years now that she's been out of corporate America. So a year after me retiring or me hiring a coach, I was able to retire her from corporate America and bring her into the business to come design for us.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's great. That's the dream, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the dream.
Now, I was in trouble, of course, because I'd never mentioned about.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way.
But now it works. It's and I wouldn't frivolously just spend money on it. But if you are truly committed to the business side of things, don't go, oh, I want to do as many kitchens as I can and buy a boat or anything like that. Don't go spend money on coaching for that. But if you want to build a business that's a tangible asset that you can, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, either pass to your children or sell, you need coaching. If that's your aspirations in life, you need coaching because it's going to dramatically shorten the time frame in order to get there. I mean, I just re-signed up. Not re-signed up. I just signed up for another coaching program that's designed to take you from 7 figures to 10 or to 8 figures.
Yeah, and it's going to work. The funny thing is, and people ask me this sometimes, is they're like, well, how do I know coaching is going to work? And unfortunately, they're pointing the finger in the wrong direction. Coaching works.
Oh yeah,
it's you or it's me. Like I'm the one who. Sorry, I'm the coach. So Cobus, it's up to you to put the systems in place. And you probably encountered resistance from your team when you came in and said, hey, we got this new system, or we really have to live our values, or we're going to focus on a different kind of customer. I'm sure those conversations were met with some sort of resistance at times.
Oh, absolutely. And to a certain extent, a little bit less in my case, just because I don't have like field employees that are hourly guys. I can see that probably happens more. Let's say, for example, you had bathroom renovation, because bathrooms and kitchens is probably one of the few things where I can see where you can put a crew together. Yeah. They can handle everything. After that, it just gets too large, and then you start becoming to like you're subbing out 50% and you're keeping 50% in-house. And at that point, it's like you might as well just sub everything out and alleviate the stress of.
Well, that's what you've come to now. There's a lot of people living in that kitchen and bath renovation life who like, I got a great foreman. It's a little tough keeping the crew together, but we can get it done. Then we sub out the electrical and the tile and the plumbing. Yeah,
and make no mistake, you can make a great living doing that if you still understand the business aspects of things. But don't think that you're going to build a multiple 7-figure company with really good margins that somebody's going to want to come buy from me at one point. I've always looked at it from a standpoint as I want to get my business to a point where I can take summer off. I want to be able to take 3 months off during the summer when the kids are out of school and go do stuff and have a once a week or twice a week Zoom call with my team back home, just making sure everything's on track. Yeah, that's a business. But when you go on vacation for a week and you leave on Saturday, by Tuesday, you're like, oh my gosh, I wonder what's happening with the crew back home. Is things are falling apart? We're not selling jobs because I'm not selling jobs. Who's doing the estimates? Who's sending emails? If you can get that out of the way, then you have a true business as opposed to, a side gig.
Yeah. So all of this came from educating yourself, taking those first steps, getting into it, and really committing to build the company.
Yeah. And I will say that's always been my dream to have that even before the coaching. So this wasn't something where I got involved with coaching and then suddenly I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. I always knew that's the business I wanted to have because I had seen other people that had it, but I didn't have the inner workings and the structure within the company in order to do that. And I'm still not there. Now I was on a call the other day with somebody, and he kind of mentioned to me and another guy, so well, you've already made it. And it's like one thing when you get into coaching, you realize that you've never made it.
No.
Because once you hit a certain level, for example, the one thing is like so many guys say, if I can just get to $100,000 a year in personal income, if I can get to $100,000,
life will be totally different when we're $2 million. Yeah. Life will be different.
And then you get to that point and you realize that
I'm not done.
Yeah, this is great. I'm not stressing so much about my bills at home and stuff anymore. But from a potential standpoint of where I am now and where I can be,
yeah,
it's like I'm not $100,000 a year guy. I'm a $1 million a year guy. But like, how do you get from the 100,000 to $1 million? That's where the coaching comes in, because that shortens that gap drastically, because you learn from guys.
So just this week, I had a conversation with a 4-person family business. I'm not going to mention any more than that, or it's going to be too easy to define. And they decided to invest in coaching, right? But it was a big deal because, it's not free. And they're like, this is going to be hard on us because the money we take from the business, we're barely getting what we need today. And so, coaching puts a lot of systems in place, lots of little tiny things. And one of the tiny things we talked about was taking a design fee. So we looked at their whole process. You earlier talked about marketing and sales. We need to insert a step in there where you're taking a design fee, and their design fee was $1,200. And they're like, oh yeah, we tried it. Dom, since our last coaching meeting, we just tried it and it worked. The person loved it and they paid the $1,200. I'm like, well, congratulations. And they sort of, they're happy. Like, we got $1,200. And then I said, well, how many jobs will you do a year? 50. Okay, well, let's go 1,200 times 50. And that's $60,000.
Yeah.
And guess what that is? That's one person is back at full salary. Yeah. Now, it's not great, but that was one side meeting inside the meetings of all the other coaching. And so to your point, once you start to see the opportunities, finding your profit leaks, finding your opportunities, they really start to ramp up fast.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I like the fact that you brought up designs, and they might say 60 right now, but there might be a certain percentage of drop off from people that aren't going to be willing to pay that $1,200. And that's fine.
Sure.
But that to me, that's the BS meter.
Yeah.
If we have a phone conversation, I'll tell you what you're looking at $100,000. And they go, oh yeah, that's great. It's like, when can you come out? I'd love to come out. But I've got this crazy little fee, and for me to come out there, our designs, we do 4% of the overall project. Okay. So $100,000 project would be a $4,000 design. If they go, yeah, I'm cool with 100,000, but I'm not going to give you $4,000 to actually pre-plan this thing out and build it out on paper, so we know exactly what we're going to do, when we're going to do, how we're going to do it, then they're just BSing me, because they're not going to spend $100,000 in any case. They probably already have another bid, and they just want you to come out and reassure them that the other number
for free.
Yeah,
for free. Yeah. Sorry you had to miss your daughter's dance recital, your son's baseball game. Just can you come out and give me a quote for free?
So funny stories. I've got a guy in the office that runs a labor company. He gets construction companies laborers on an as-needed basis.
Yeah.
So I rent an office to him here across the hall from me, because it works out great. If we ever in a pinch, we need somebody, I just reach out to him, and he tells me, call this guy, that guy, and it's all sorted. It's taken care of. But his mom wants to do a renovation. And she was like, they want you to come out there. It's like, I'm not. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, I'm not coming out there. I don't go out to people's houses. He's like, well, what do we have to do? It's like, well, send me the pictures and send me the plans, because they already have the architectural plans. It's like, okay, I'll get you the plans, but they don't want to send pictures. They just want you to come out here. And I said, I'm not going to. So I was like, well, what's it going to take for you to come out there? It's like, it'll be $500. You want me to just come to your house and walk around with you for an hour and a half and just dream? It's $500. And the way I justify that is, when I don't charge you for that time, the people that are paying me $200,000 to do a whole house renovation for them, that's time away from somebody that's bought in with us. They are invested with us. We are partners through the entire project. So me just going to dream with somebody else, giving them numbers, it doesn't make sense, because it's stealing from my actual client.
Yeah.
Now that's the way I look at it. So, I will go out, but it's always $500.
But Cobus Breytenbach from 4 years ago.
Oh, I would have ran out there on Saturday evening or Sunday afternoon, whatever they wanted.
I'll bring the beer.
I would have gone home and spent hours on my spreadsheets and then work until 1 a.m. Monday morning going, I'm going to get this job. And then he submitted and he never got back from him.
Yeah. I so appreciate you being on the show. I don't want to take too much more of your time. This is the time has flown by, Cobus. Excellent.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize.
Yeah. Great conversation. I really appreciate what you shared with us. And it's easy for me to talk about education because that's the business I'm in. I'm here to educate, inspire business owners. Obviously, I've invested in my own education for years to get here. I failed for a long time before I decided to stop failing.
Yeah.
And then I still fail. but I try to learn from those, as you did, right? You learned as you went along. And so I really appreciate hearing it from your perspective, like a real business owner in the field, about what you're doing and making it work. That's what we need to hear on this show. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. All right, Cobus. Well, you have a great weekend. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you, Dominic. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya.